Hello, I'm Erin at home. Today I'm showing how I made eco-friendly plant labels. I bought these wooden labels from a local hardware shop, but I hope sometime to learn how to split wood well enough to make my own. Even though the surface was quite smooth, I used 180 grit sandpaper to take off any tiny bits that might affect the writing. Remember to sand along the grain of the wood, not across, and wipe off the dust afterwards. I bought the least expensive pyrography tool I could find, and this is my first attempt at using one. I've also only just started learning uncial script. I've written the alphabet a few times, so this is very much a beginner's effort. So many people who make videos are showing crafts and skills they've perfected over years of practice, and while it's very inspiring to see what can be done, sometimes it's also daunting, and it's good to remember that if something is worth doing, it's worth doing badly, while you're getting better at it, and that's my niche. While the pyrography tool heated up, I drew an outline around the label on 5mm square graph paper to practice writing at the appropriate size. This pen nib is 2mm wide, and the height of the letters should be approximately 4 times the width of the pen. I'm doing the short letters 5mm high to fit in one square, with the ascending and descending letters going about halfway into the squares above and below. I'm a beginner at this. I watched some YouTube videos and there seem to be several types of uncial script, even apart from the individual styles between different writers. But this is the one I liked best for this project, and I'll link the video that I watched below if you're interested in trying it yourself. The labels are 20mm wide, and I marked 2 lines at 7mm and 13mm, giving a height of 6mm between, and did a draft in pencil first, which turned out to be a good idea because I was so engrossed in making the shape of the letters I missed one of them out. Fortunately, it was quite easy to rub out and correct. It probably would have been wiser to practice on a bit of scrap wood first, but I didn't have one, so I started straight on the label. This is literally my first attempt at pyrography, so it can only get better. I started at the right hand side because I was a bit nervous at starting right next to my fingers and worked my way along. I could have turned the label over and burnt the letters in upside down instead of having the tip so close to my hand, but that didn't occur to me until just now. After doing the initial outline, I went back over it to widen the lines. The pencil marks rubbed out easily, and the next task was to waterproof the label. To melt beeswax in the oven, I prefer to use silicone because the wax comes away very easily once it's cooled. It melts at around 70 degrees Celsius, but usually the oven is turned up to about 120 to melt it faster. I wouldn't go too high though, just in case it combusts. While that was melting, I did a few more labels. I could have written these in my ordinary handwriting, but I wanted to try to make something that was both useful and beautiful, which should make William Morris happy. I chose the uncial script because I thought it was the one closest to how Samwise Gamgee would probably have written his plant labels. I followed the same steps for the remaining labels, and the most important thing to remember is that it's a pyrography tool, not a pen, and don't forget and try to hold it too close to the tip, which I did. I'm doing this much more slowly than this shows. For your sake, I sped the footage up 20 times. Once the wax was melted, the labels were put into it, then returned to the oven to give time for the wax to soak into the wood. Then they were fished out and put onto a rack and back into the oven for the excess wax to drain off. Once the wax was cool, the last few drips were scraped off. Here are the finished labels ready to use. If you enjoyed this, ring the notification bell below so you can see when my next video is uploaded. In the meantime, you might like these.